and I created a piece which had a background and then some written words over the top, and I'd written very carefully, things will be different this time because this time you are different. So those words are kind of a real, like, they're almost like a bit of a mantra, something that I would say to myself to draw strength and confidence from. And a woman came into my exhibition and she was reading this, and took a couple of minutes, and then I started talking to her and she started crying and became quite overcome by emotion just having read this piece. So yeah, it's clearly like what I was trying to convey with this piece, the meaning, like my experiences, the way I put this art together had really resonated with her. So that was quite a powerful experience of someone I'd never met before and perhaps will never meet again, having such a strong connection to what I was trying to convey in my art.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Melting Pot again, the space where transformation, creativity, and human stories converge. My guest today is Robin Ajder. Robin is living proof even the darkest chapters can give rise to profound beauty. After a 9 year battle with drug addiction, Robin chose a new path, one rooted in healing, presence, and purpose. So, thank you so much, Robin, for joining me today and sharing your journey with me and all my viewers and listeners on Melting Pot.
Yeah, great to be here. Looking forward to the conversation and to share a bit of my journey with you.
Thank you, Robin. So, Robin, can you take us back to the moment you decided to turn your life around after your 9 year battle with addiction? And what exactly sparked that change?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it would be easy in retrospect to tell a story which is I had this profound awakening, or I was really conscious and intentional and thought, right, I must make a change now. This is going to be it. But I think that the truth is that wasn't really how it happened. Throughout my kind of experience, kind of using drugs and unfortunately getting deeper and deeper into my addiction, I tried throughout those years, as things got worse and worse, I'd often try to stop using drugs and say, look, this is getting too much. And maybe I'd get 3 weeks, maybe I'd get 6 weeks, whatever it may be, just through sheer willpower and distracting myself and the addiction and the addictive behaviors coming out in other areas. But I'd always go back to it, and I didn't understand why I was doing that to myself. That's how I felt when my life got so much better, when I was clean and not using drugs and free from the addiction. I thought, why do I keep doing this to myself? So at the
And
point that I
sorry,
was,
how old were you when you got into this addiction? And I know it lasted for 9 years, so you must have been really, really young at the time.
yeah, I was 15 when I first started experimenting with drugs. And although at 15, it by no means was like kind of in full blown addiction, even from an early age, it was clear that how I felt when I used drugs and the focus I had to get and use drugs and to pursue that and to do it more than the people around me, to make changes to who I was hanging around with, my friendship group. It was clear from a pretty early age that I had a more problematic relationship with drugs, even if it did take many years for it to manifest to kind of full blown addiction where I was taking control of my life.
Okay, so then how did art, was it art that sparked the change? Or was it you overcoming addiction and then you thought, oh, so because you were never, as I read and understand, you were never a creative person. So just take us through a little bit about how you actually got into art. So was this the reason why you did, or it was just a spark, or what exactly happened?
Yeah, so art was something that happened much further down the line. So at the point that I got clean, it was just kind of, it felt at that time like it's time to try again, time to try getting clean again. I didn't necessarily have much conviction that it would work. It was just kind of that desperation. I was under a lot of pressure in my life, and I tried a drug support service. And I was just really fortunate at that time in my life. I was really desperate to change. And I found a community of people that had experience getting and staying clean, that showed me what they had done and what had worked for them. That community was very kind and loving and supportive. And it's through engaging with that community that I was finally able to make it a lasting change, because I was no longer just trying to figure it out on my own. I was able to follow in the path of those that had made that change successfully.
Okay. And then what sparked the art?
So many years later, many years later, I think it was about 3.5 years ago from today, during the COVID-19 lockdown, I was visiting my parents. I wandered down to the art shop with my mum, bought a few pens. I was really drawn to these dual end markers, a chisel end and a narrow end, and bought a few colours. And there was a piece of art I'd seen in the window of the gallery in London, these swirling shapes and colours. And I just started sketching, one afternoon with this handful of pens that I'd bought, and just really enjoyed the sensation of making the art, and it felt quite peaceful, and I loved the colors. Just kind of escalated from there, really.
Okay. So this was about 3.5 years ago.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. So, Robin, do you feel like there's a before and after version of you? And how do they speak to each other through your art?
A before and after what point?
A before and after when you got into art.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I think as I reflect on my life, there's quite a few before and after
Before and
points.
afters, I'm sure. But let's
Yeah.
let's
Um,
let's let's focus on the positives and let's focus
Yeah,
on your
most definitely. Art has been this crazy journey, and I never had any background in art or anything kind of creative as a kid. And it's like a totally different part of life, it's a totally different part of myself that is like engaged in creativity, both in terms of like skill and creative ability. That's grown hopefully a decent amount in the time I've been practicing as an artist and doing it quite intensely. But so too, from doing therapy, like my therapist always used to say to me, stop thinking, stop being in your head, overthinking, being in your thoughts, and come into the body, checking with your intuition. And art is like absolutely brilliant for that, because when I pick shapes, when I pick colors, when I'm trying to choose composition for a piece, when I'm trying to achieve that balance, when I've got a decision to make around how I progress a piece, the answer is rarely here. The answer is generally I check in with myself, and my intuition, how I'm feeling, is calling for a decision, for a direction. So I would say that, like, to answer your question, like before and after starting art, I think it's like helped me to be more like integrated and more connected to like my intuition, as opposed to just existing in my head in the land of thinking only and not feeling so much.
so it's intuitiveness that actually brings you to create something.
Yeah, I think
And
so. And
yeah, it's not that you wake up one morning and then you have your whatever medium, that we'll talk about that as well, your technique and the medium, because you do a lot of abstract work. So you just it like, it's not, so you need to have a connection, and you need to feel that intuitiveness, and that's what you transfer on to your art, and that's what translates into whatever you create at the end of it. Am I correct in sort of?
it's a good summary. I think all I'd be keen to emphasize is like I definitely haven't got this like perfected yet. I think what I'd say is like I've made good progress, like being a bit more driven by intuition and feel and trusting that instinct, and not kind of just slipping back into being overthinking all the time. And I think some of my best art has come where I've been able to really like trust and listen to that intuition, and it's quite strong. It's not like a whisper. It's often like a shout. When I'm trying to decide, when I make kind of crucial decisions around the direction I take a piece in, and I think that if I were to ponder on like what's my as a how do I grow from here as an artist? How do I get stronger creatively? I think it's like more experience, being guided by, and just getting like closer to that creative intuition. I think that's where my best work is going to come from.
Okay, so what was your first piece of art that you created 3.5 years ago?
It's kind of hard to describe, but it was inspired by this fantastic piece, and it was these swirling bands of color. It was very bright. The piece that stuck in my mind was these very bright pink and orange colors, and I did a
Sorry, so
version of
is
that.
it something that you saw, or it just came from within?
No, it was a piece I saw, and I
Okay.
didn't, I didn't, I didn't try and replicate it, but I took the key element, these kind of flowing bands of color, like several bands of color aligned next to each other, then almost taking a path. And that element was what I kind of created in my first drawing. These swirling bands of color.
Okay, now we come to the technique. And I know you're still very experimental because it's just been 3.5 years, and it's something that you've started to create for yourself, not just for yourself now, but like, what is the kind of medium that you enjoy using the most? And what is your, let's say, what's your most favorite color to actually
Wow.
splash on your abstract painting?
So I think to answer the first question, I started my work with alcohol marker pens, so basically fancy felt tip pens, and quite quickly did a body of work using those pens. And my first kind of big breakout art show, where I filled my flat with art as part of the Brighton Artist Open Houses, was all these pieces made with marker pens. And then at the end of that show, I said to myself, actually, I want to try painting now. Moving over to acrylic paint. And in the past year, I've worked exclusively with acrylic paint and made a kind of a second body of work, which now fills my flat. As to a favorite, I'm going to have to say paint. Like, it's been a tough journey learning how to paint with no prior experience. And yeah, a steep learning curve has been required to try and get to a decent level of competency to then express the ideas that I have. So I'm going to say paint is my favorite, although it's not without its difficulties. As to a color, I mean, this is like probably the question I get asked most as an artist, especially one whose work is so full of strong, vibrant colors. Very difficult to pick. I think like the blue shades really have a special place in my heart. And I think maybe like an ultramarine blue, if I were to pick one, would probably be the same shade that's behind me, actually, in this blurred out background. If I were to pick one, I'd say that ultramarine blue is my favorite.
And I had a sense that you were going to say that because you've talked a lot about your connection with the ocean and the fact that you live in Brighton and you're so close to the ocean. Somehow I had a sense that you were going to say that the color is blue. So, Robin, you've said your work is about energy exchange. So, can you describe a time someone's response to your art actually reflected that idea back to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think a great example is I was exhibiting throughout May, and I created a piece which had a background and then some written words over the top, and I'd written very carefully, things will be different this time because this time you are different. So those words are kind of a real, like they're almost like a bit of a mantra, something that I would say to myself to draw strength and confidence from. And a woman came into my exhibition and she was reading this and took a couple of minutes. And then I started talking to her and she started crying and became quite overcome by emotion just having read this piece. So yeah, it's clearly like what I was trying to convey with this piece, the meaning, like my experiences, the way I put this art together had really resonated with her. So that was quite a powerful experience of someone I'd never met before and perhaps will never meet again, having such a strong connection to what I was trying to convey in my art.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because sometimes, I think art is also so, and yours is abstract art. So the everyone who looks at a piece would have a different interpretation of it or a different way of defining it personally. And so no, I completely understand that she may have it may have touched a chord. She may be going through something in life which kind of made that and drew that connection. So yeah, no, that's like pretty and I can imagine and how you must have felt at the end of that conversation with her, a sense of, okay, there is meaning to what I do and probably purpose as well. And then that propels you and motivates you to continue to create. So, why abstract? I know you've talked about how you embrace imperfections in your work. So, is that the reason why you took to abstract painting?
No,
Okay.
it almost went the other way around. I drew, like it was always about the color and it was always about the shapes. That's just kind of what I felt so like drawn to. And even when I just started sketching, when I finish a piece and I was thinking about, well, maybe I'll start sketching again and drawing again, it was always like, oh wow, I'm really excited about those three color pens I want to bring together. Or what if I did a circle last time? What about a triangle? What about a triangle intersected with a square? What about, a more detailed pattern versus, a more minimal kind of symbol style work? So they were always that was always what pulled me in. And it wasn't even really conscious as to say, I want to make abstract art or I want to, there was no consideration of alternatives. It was just, I felt like motivated and drawn to a certain style, and that's what I pursued. And then as to kind of embracing the imperfections, like again, I won't claim that I had that perspective to start with. When I used to take my work to get digitalized and made into prints, I'd be saying to a guy called Tristan I was working with, and I'd be saying, can we Photoshop out the imperfections? And he was saying, no, you're mad. That's what makes this special. He said, this style of work, a lot of people they'll make this digitally. You do it by hand. We want the imperfections in there. That's part of the story. That's part of the expression. Credit where credit's due. I didn't arrive at that conclusion on my own. I had to learn that actually with art, the imperfections are a really special part of the process.
And the creation, yeah. No, no, that makes a lot of sense. So, do you feel that your art actually helps you process emotions or experiences from your past? I mean, you've said that you've had a lot of experiences and you've gone through a different different kinds of journeys in your life. Is there any particular work that actually represents healing or breakthrough moments in your?
I feel like I could answer this question in great, great detail in lots of ways. So I'll try not to do that. I think the first thing I'd say is like, because my work is so connected to my journey, rarely will someone see my work and not understand this has come from Robin. Robin's gone through that journey. He's overcome addiction. He's worked on his mental health. I'm proud to share that story and to say I am the man I am today. I've got this full life. I can be really proud that I'm a man of integrity today and I've worked hard to get here. So in sharing my art, I'm also like having that vulnerability to say, look, this is who I am. This is my journey to the person I am today, and I can stand with pride in that. So that kind of connects to all of my pieces. There's one piece in particular called Flow, which is probably the piece I'm most well known for, a pretty minimal style piece. It was something I made quite early on, and it's all about the kind of flow and exchange of energy between two beings, these two shapes. And I've made different variations on that work. I've actually got that piece tattooed on my forearm. I've got,
Can I
it's
can we see it?
there we go. Oh, there it is. There it is.
Yeah, yeah,
And I can talk my arm.
yeah, yeah.
So that's a really special piece because so many people have it's in lots of people's homes now. As I say, the piece has evolved as I've evolved as an artist. I hand drew it, I've painted it, I've made it digitally. It keeps evolving as I keep evolving as an artist. And I think, to come back to your question, so much of my journey is moving from a place of isolation and darkness to like lots of connection with people, with communities, with myself, with the world. And that piece is all about that. It's kind of symbolizing and reflecting connection. So I think that's probably the piece that's kind of most special in that way.
And at what stage in your within the past 3 years was it one of the first few that you created, or is it a more recent piece of art?
It's pretty early, one of the pretty early
Early
ones.
one.
Yeah, I probably made 15 pieces A4 size, so like an A4 piece of paper, that relatively small. And then I moved over to A2, so that's what felt like an endless canvas in comparison. And it was quite soon after moving to the A2, I made three pieces in this series called the Pathways series. And it's just one of those kind of moments of magic where you create something and then you go, wow, that's where did that come from?
Yeah, that's special. Robin, if you could distill your art into a message or a feeling that you'd like to leave with each viewer and listener, what would it be?
That's a really interesting question. Um, I think I'll just answer with the first thing that comes to mind. Like in some of my more recent work, I've used this phrasing of like, we need to fight for the life that we deserve. There's a piece up here that says, "Life is hard, we fight," and this, I think my lived experience, both for myself and the people I've known in my life, is life is really hard for everyone in different ways. And that's like a certainty. And what I believe is really important is that like I want to fight for the life that I deserve to reach my potential, to have like the happiness and the serenity and the peace that I like want to experience. And like that would be what I hope for everyone, that we all show up for ourselves and we're all fighting to have the best life that we can. And that doesn't have to be, full of glamorous achievements. It's not like I want to, we need to impress each other, or
Yeah.
we're doing this for social credits. It's for each one of us to have like the life that we deserve and the life that we want. So that if I were to try and distill the message, that would be it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think each individual has, yes, everyone goes through certain stages in their life, and to be able to overcome like you did, and to be able to it's almost like, I mean, like what you're saying is that life is hard, but you can bring about a change in your life, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And another
yeah.
kind of avenue that I've explored since I've been clean is like life coaching. So I've worked with quite a number of clients now in a life coaching capacity, and I've seen some people to really do some amazing things and go way beyond their perceived limitations and their perception of themselves. And again, that's not in like necessarily a glamorous way or in
Correct.
a way that's
It
going to
has
impress
to
people
be
around.
like, yeah, absolutely. It's like simple steps, and you're right. It doesn't have to be in a glamorous way. I think it's more for you as an individual, and for you to be able to find that path, and in a positive way, rather than trying to, and one step at a time, rather than trying to just get to something which is not that easily attainable without going through the steps and without trying to make the effort. Yeah, no, absolutely, that makes a lot of sense. And I didn't realize that you were also a life coach now. I had no idea. I didn't really, I probably missed it, but because I was so focused on talking about your art that I didn't make that connection. No, but that's incredible that, and I think for you, the fact that you have gone through a very dark time in your life, and for you, so it's personal experience. It's not that, okay, I studied to become a life coach, and then I think the connection is very different when you've gone through a journey yourself, which has been really dark, and you've overcome and you've become a different person now. What you can bring to the table, talking to people who are struggling at the moment and who have a lack of direction, is very different, and it's less clinical and more, I guess, a different kind of connection, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I think like what excites me is regardless of someone's starting point, like we should all believe that we have the ability to like bring about like positive change in our lives. So some people, they're in a great place in their life and they want to get to an excellent place and they want to push on from there. Other people are in a crisis and they've got a really low starting point. But I think it's like I'm not sat here today, the finished product, or I haven't got the perfect life. I'm not like there's still loads of stuff I want to change and improve about myself, and things I want to add to my life, and areas I want to become more mature. So I'm like definitely a work in progress. But like I believe that if I keep like being humble and trying to work hard and like using the skills and the approach that I've used so far, I can continue growing and bringing more and more positive change into my life. And I think that's available to everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Finally, I have one last question for you. What does the idea of melting pot, a space of transformation, blending, and rebirth, mean to you personally?
I think to me, what it means is like the strength of community and the strength of people working together. So I just think we're all so limited. And I think that like in connection with other people, like with each other's support, with community, when we bring together like all of our differences, not just in who we are, but our perspective. I think perspective is so important in life, and different people bring different perspectives. In bringing that together and having the melting pot, we can do a lot more through the melting pot, so to speak. There's a lot greater like transformation potential available versus just individual elements, individual people kind of working in isolation.
Yeah. So community is the key, is what you were saying. And it brings people together. And yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And it's much because then you're able to learn from each other, and there is strength in that. And yeah, no, that truly is a melting pot. So thank you so much, Robin. I've really enjoyed talking to you, and more power to you. And I'm sure that your art has already evolved, but it's going to be it will continue to be special, and it will continue to reflect your identity as well as reflect what it means to be able to transform your life into someone that you can become. And I haven't personally seen any of your art, but whatever I have seen on your website, I absolutely love. And I'm hoping to be able to see it in person soon, because I will be in Hove towards the end of this month. And if there is an opportunity, I'd love to hop across to Brighton and meet you personally. I would absolutely love to do that.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. I have a home studio, so I have my art kind of on display and here, there, and everywhere all year round. So we'd love to welcome you to my home studio and show you around. And yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity to come on your podcast. It's been really nice chatting with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Robin. You have a wonderful day ahead of you.